That's a good one. Because I just launched a creatine, pre-workout, and beet powder. I'm gonna get you some.
Ooh, that's a good
I'm
combo.
gonna be like, this one will take you to the right direction. My bad, direction. That's a good line you just put out there.
You know, I'll give you a better one. This could be, instead of Viagra, it could be Chito Viagra. If you could package it right, I'll be your second customer.
Beet gra, beet gra, beats that make you the same feeling of the Viagra. You know,
All natural.
All natural.
Because we're all natural people here.
We're all natural here.
Raw butter,
Raw milk, raw cheese,
raw Viagra.
raw Viagra. Yeah, we're pretty raw here.
The recipe will be on his Instagram in about 2 days. So look out for it.
Come check it out, boys. If you guys need some help, I got you.
Boys to men.
You know what I want to talk to you?
What's that?
That when you were texting me, the medicine, the ink, all that together.
Yeah.
When you text me that, I got really excited. I want to know about that.
What's cool about it is when you and I get together and we tattoo, we go down the rabbit hole. And some of my best friends are people that can think deeply. Because, you know, I always tell people, like, I could only handle a certain amount of mushrooms because my natural life is a mushroom trip. The way I'm wired, the way I think, I'm always going down rabbit holes and thinking deep about everything. So with tattooing, it got me thinking, we hear little bits of history throughout being a tattoo artist about how ancient tattoos are, 5,000 years old, the mummy that was discovered, the Nordics, all the different cultures that got tattoos. And I don't think a lot of artists nowadays or people really looked into why they got tattoos. That's the fascinating part. So when I started looking into why people got tattoos, the ritualistic aspect, the spiritual practices, the energetic practices, and also the medicine. I think that's what you got excited about, the medicine. So, you know, we hear that term all the time. That's medicine. You go through pain or you lose a fight, right? Oh, it's medicine, right? Let me ask you this, Chito. How would you equate losing a fight to being medicine?
I mean, to me, when I lose a fight, everything goes about how I can get better, how I can get through this in the most healthy way and not staying in the mud, right? Because when you lose a fight, it's all shit. It's like the way MMA works goes from leading up to the fight, a lot of hype, especially if you're coming from good wins and everybody's hype about what could happen. Let's see, you go in there and things don't go well. It's almost like the whole world just shut down. Like everybody goes like, oh, yeah, not that good. And you don't fight every 30 days. So you can, like in other sports, you can play many times. You lose 2 games, you win 10, doesn't matter. In fighting, you only fight twice a year.
Jeez.
So you lose 1 fight and you're pretty much in the mud that whole time. So to me, it's like, okay, I got to go back to the gym, how I can get better, how I can be more healthy, more explosive, faster, keep my cardio up. That's the easy part. To me, the most important part is the mental part. Like how I can keep my mind right, how I can stay positive, how I can learn from that loss. And first things first, never come up with excuses and never blame it on everybody else.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, I went to that cage and tried my best to do my thing. I have my team that get me better, that help me, my main coach that give me the best advice he can. But when things don't go well, you can just point fingers and act like it wasn't you the problem. Because you could be the problem, your surroundings could be, but that's also up to me to figure it out and cut the negativity. So when you lose a fight is how I can get up, you know. Not many people get up. You see guys 10-0, they won a world title, they lose the next fight, they go like 5-6 losses in a row because they're not able to handle that. And being able to handle defeat would pretty much take you to anything in life.
Yeah.
And that comes with the word medicine. Like, how can you be a better person, a better human, being more healthy and accepting the wrong in life? Because there's gonna be wrong out there. So how you take that and make the wrong right.
It's almost like how plant medicine humbles you. You know, you're sitting there, you're doing plant medicine, and it doesn't allow you to point fingers at anything. You're like, wow, this is from my own doing. My life choices led up to this. How can I be better? And I think that losing a fight or getting a tattoo, that pain, that discomfort, like the cold plunge, things like that, discomfort is really where the medicine is for tattooing. And I like to say, the great yogis and different people always try to tell us to live in the now. Well, there's certain things that force you to live in the now.
Yeah.
And tattooing is one of them. You can't escape to the future or the past. You're stuck in this present moment. And I think that that's why tattoos are ritualistic and are medicine, because if you really take the time, I talk with Travis about this a lot of times, where, we don't, it's one of those things where when you're stuck, and you and I have went down this path too with that stomach piece, it's like when you're stuck in the present moment, experiencing this excruciating pain, and tattoos hurt like a motherfucker.
They fucking hurt.
Especially in certain spots like the stomach.
Yeah, my nardis one.
Yeah.
Like I felt things on my stomach that, I mean, there's a reason I haven't been back.
Yeah.
I mean, my dream is like I see myself shirtless. I'm like, holy shit, when this is finished, it's gonna be so sick, and I want it, but the other part's like, fuck, I gotta finish it, and that's painful. But
yeah,
it's just like finding the time to be like, I'm gonna go through this, and when you wake up on the day of the tattoo, it's not cool. It's anxiety leading up to like, oh fuck, what I'm gonna do today.
Yes, that's true. It's
but it's worth it. I mean, I would say my pain threshold is pretty high.
Yeah, it is. I mean, look at all the tattoos you have. You have tattoos in some painful areas. Even the last tattoo we did on you was in a very painful area. But that is the medicine. Like, I think I took you into a whole different universe towards the end.
Yeah.
I was like a 6-7 hour session of just lines and mags and raking and
for one piece, it was 3 sessions.
Yeah.
It was the outline first.
Yeah.
The second was just the face. I mean,
Yeah.
we need Mary to be pretty.
Right there on the sternum.
Right there. And then the third session was shading everything else. That I was like, holy shit.
That's really where the medicine comes in. So like when you're experiencing excruciating pain and you're stuck in the now, your mind kind of just sort of gets trapped, right? And I say it's medicine only if you allow it to be, right? So if you sit there and in that meditation, you start to go within, like, this is painful. What I do, like when Cartoon's doing my back, I went to see him the day after I was in the sun for 6 hours. So I had a sunburn. That was the worst pain in my entire life. I thought to myself, if hell is real, I'm going to be a good boy for the rest of my life because fucking this shit burns. And I was thinking like, okay, I know about the medicine aspect of tattooing. Let me go within and let me use this pain and let me see what I can do. Let me see what areas of my soul I could feed where I'm lacking. Is it discipline? Is it eating healthier? So I was able to harness and gather that pain, convert it to medicine, transmute it, and really stay in that present moment and connect to certain parts of, where I'm slacking at in life and shining a lot of light in that area. And it's weird because that pain is like a moment that allows you to do that. And I don't think a lot of people do that. I know James, when I tattoo James, he's a natural. He's been doing that naturally since the beginning. But it's really been able to search within and use that moment instead of just sitting there screaming and crying, which we do because it hurts sometimes in different spots. It's like, how do I turn this into medicine? But the fascinating part of it is when you look at the history and why people were getting tattoos back in the days, rites of passage. People were getting them to express what tribes they were from, to express what things they've passed through, right? Are they now an adult? Are they now a hunter-gatherer? And so you look at all the ancient reasons why people got tattooed, and you start to think, wow, that was really serious. They weren't really just getting tattoos back in the days to look cool. Like I wonder if they, if the young pretty ladies of the tribe back then used to look at the men and say, damn, that guy's fine. He's got his face tattooed. I don't know if they did that. It was such a natural way of being for certain tribes. It was just, that's who he is. He's now an adult, or he's now the leader of the tribe. And every tattoo meant something. It was like when you see somebody from a different tribe, you could read where they're from, what they're about. You would know, if there's danger or not. True. And so I would say to people, like, if you're looking at a linear time scale of the beginning of tattoos, like And we don't really even know what that is. We know that over 5,000 years ago, they discovered a mummy that had tattoos. You fast forward to today, tattooing's really only gotten super popular over the last 20 years, right? I've been tattooing for 32 years almost. So I could tell you, like, it wasn't popular when I started. We were not cool. We were like rebels. Our parents and family members thought we were crazy. Then I think in about 2006, when the reality show started coming out, people started to accept it a little bit more, but not much, you know. And then 2010, 2015, it became a little bit more and more acceptable. Now you have nurses and lawyers and doctors getting tattoos, which was wild.
Yeah.
And I lived through that. I remember going, "Oh my God, this lawyer wants me to tattoo him. This is crazy." Like, I've only tattooed gang members and people that were just living on the edge of society. And then now you fast forward to today, it's like everyone's got a relative or a son or a daughter that tattoos. You know, so it's just sort of became so mainstream. And I think that when things become mainstream, you forget the real root reason and the root medicine and ritualistic aspect of tattooing or anything in the culture is. You lose it. And tattooing became so popular so fast that me, as a 32-year tattoo veteran, I'm sitting here going, that's crazy. Like, how do I find meaning in what I do? I don't want to just tattoo for the heck of it anymore. I've been doing it for so long. I want it to mean something to me. So, as you know, I started closing my books, and I stopped taking just anyone and everyone that wanted a tattoo. And I went through this phase where, you know, I'm teaching my son how to tattoo. Angelo, he's 22. He's been learning for about 2 years now.
And he's getting good.
Yeah,
I saw his last piece. It was
Shout
pretty
out to
sick.
Angelo. Yeah.
Yeah, Angelo, you're killing me.
Yeah.
I saw his last piece and I was like, keep it
yeah.
up.
And my daughter Gianna, she's learning as well. She's 19 years old. And the first thing I tell them is, you guys are medicine workers. I'm not going to teach you how to tattoo. James, shout out to James for Bishop. James is like my right-hand man, but he's left-handed. Figure out that paradox. But James is learning to tattoo as well, and he's kicking ass. You've seen the fake skin he's doing.
No.
But the first thing I tell them is, I'm not going to teach you how to tattoo. I'm going to teach you how to be a blessing to the world. I'm going to teach you how to be a healer. I'm going to teach you how to be a medicine man. Your medicine isn't mushrooms. Your medicine is tattoos. Your medicine is pain, really. When you narrow it down, when I say I'm a medicine worker, which I consider myself to be when I tattoo, my medicine is pain. And it's brought in the form of symbolism. And so you tie that symbolism. There's an ancient technique called the Callahan technique. That's not ancient, but it comes from ancient practices. The Callahan technique is better known as tapping, right? How do we tie things, smells, symbols to our subconscious mind? There's a lot of people that, you know, we read books about the subconscious mind, the conscious mind, the super subconscious mind. We all operate on a subconscious level.
Yeah.
We talk the same, we walk the same. It's like we're all kind of robotic. And the reason why we're robotic is because we operate from the subconscious mind. Only a few of us transcend that. And to transcend that, you have to be conscious of what those levels of consciousness are so that you could weave in and out of them. Theta state, delta state, right? Those types of things. And so that's kind of what I've become fascinated with, is how do we make tattooing ritualistic again? How do I teach people about the ritualistic aspect of tattooing? So when you're out there as a listener, if you guys are going to go get a tattoo, how do you make it mean something? Of course, we can go get a rose if we like roses or something cool. But before you get it, try to tie some type of meaning to it. Did your grandmother like roses? Okay, if she did, tie a meaning to it. And so that Callahan technique, that tapping technique it's like, the best way I could describe it is like you smell this perfume. You're at the market, you smell a perfume, you know, you instantly get taken back to when you were 6 years old and your grandmother was making dinner or something, right? Because she wore that same cologne. That scent is locked in the subconscious mind, and it got activated when you smelt it 20, 30 years later, just like that. So tattooing, for example, I had a client call me, and like I was telling you, I close my books. I only do special tattoos. Sometimes people give me shit about it. And, oh, you only tattoo cool people or famous people. That's actually not true. This guy calls me up. He lost his son. Someone pushed his son over a boat, wow. And he got chopped up with the propellers. And so this poor guy, as you could imagine, we have kids, he went through hell. and there was cover-ups, and there was all this stuff and dishonesty. So he was unable to heal. So during this tattoo session, as he's telling me actually before that, I tattooed him, he was telling me about what happened. And I said, oh, this is a beautiful time to bring this man some medicine. These type of tattoos take it out of me. I have to go home and rest after this. And I have a son. And so I thought, oh, wow, this is pretty sad. This is like, you start to picture your own son and going through that same experience. So I was like, let me bring this man some healing, just a little bit. So he comes in, we talk about the tattoo. And so this is where we go deep, and this is where it becomes medicine. So I start interviewing him. Tell me about your son. Tell me about what he meant to you. Tell me about some of the memories that you want to harness with this tattoo. And I kept telling him, look at the picture. Look at the stencil. So as he's telling me, he's looking at the stencil. And I call that anchoring it in, right? So after a good half an hour discussion about his son and what he means, and of course there's tears. I'm even crying too because I'm a father, so it's deep. We're in this sacred space that's been created. I'm like, oh, this is heavy, right? So now we're tattooing. We're still talking about his son. Tell me some fun things about him, right? We're going deep. And so I keep telling him, look at the tattoo and start really thinking about the way you feel about your son, about how he was the class clown, and about, the award you now have at his high school in honor of him, Jack. And so after the tattoo was done, throughout that whole thing, it was like, this tattoo is not just a tattoo of a portrait right. of someone's son that passed away, which I've done before I started going down this deep journey. It became activated to the point where, we're talking weeks and weeks later, and he's just like, that was the craziest thing I've ever been through. Like, this tattoo has changed my life. It's helped me get through this a little more. And that's really all I need some days, is just a little bit more. And that was kind of sent me down the road of sacred tattooing, what I call sacred tattooing, what I call using your gift as a tattoo artist to help change the world. And when it goes to James and Angelo and my daughter Gianna, that's really what I mean by saying, hey, I'm not going to teach you how to tattoo. That'd be a waste. God gave us a gift. We're not going to waste it on just tattooing for money. Anyone could do that. How do we become different? How do we go deep?
Finding the meaning on it.
Yeah, how do we find meaning? So that's really what it is for me, I was able to research the ritualistic aspects of the history of tattooing, and then it just dawned on me. I was like, fuck, this is crazy. People essentially got tattoos for serious reasons. And I'm not saying you have to get a tattoo for a serious reason, but you could definitely at least get a fun tattoo. And we all have fun tattoos. I have them. And I just try to assign a meaning to it. So because ultimately, like if I was, like when we tattooed you and we were doing some of the podcast stuff we were filming, it's my way of interviewing you. It's like, you could look at a tattoo you got 5 years ago, and it's almost like you get transported to that time, what was going on in your life, all those sort of things. So that's really what I'm hoping to do more of, is continue to research the aspects of tattooing that belong to ritual, medicinal, spiritual, learn more about that from our roots, and bring it into, our century and our culture where we're at now.
I mean, you're right with the meaning of tattoos, because a lot of people sometimes just get a huge tattoo, especially today, just to like show up something. I mean, that's like getting expensive clothes or expensive shoes, that you do it for the look and the value of it, but sometimes there's no like a deep meaning behind, or something that, I mean, to all of us something can mean a lot, and to the other person not. But at least when you get a tattoo, I love when you say, you think about something like, the reason I put a bunch of roses in this arm, it was because I remember my mom at home, she have their own roses. She cut them, she watered it, she protect them, like she does that for fun. She loved that. So at the beginning, when I started getting roses, I was like, I'm gonna do it because she loved roses. Yeah. And then my kids' portraits and the Virgin Mary. I mean, even when the first time I went to your studio, I was like, it's gonna take me 30 minutes. I
remember that.
I was like, just for fun, we just put hard work on my palms. It's gonna be probably blurry in 2 weeks. Yeah. And then you just talked me into like, let me do your whole chest, and my chest was plain. Yeah, I have just one piece, but it was small looking because my whole thing was plain. And I went like, yeah, but I don't want a big tattoo now. And then you just want like, what about this? I'm like, you know what? Just go for it. And
Yeah.
I'm so glad you talked me into it because my chest piece is crazy. I
Thank
mean,
you.
the way the lights look, the smile now, cry later. I mean, that's to me, it's like living in it now. Smile now, like enjoy what you're doing, have fun with it, and try to be the best you can. And
Yeah.
eventually, you're gonna cry. Eventually, something's gonna happen in your life. Eventually, things might not go your way, but
Yeah.
you can always remember to smile now. And I love this chest piece, and I'm super grateful that you were like, your hand tattoo is cool, it's fun, but that shit is not gonna mean nothing. And honestly,
Exactly.
looking back, having
Yeah.
this conversation, that's true. It wouldn't literally, it would be gone by now, and it was
That's
unnecessary pain.
that's the beautiful thing is like I think because I've tried to look at tattooing in such a deep way, and I think how I'm wired as a person, I'm very deep and poetic in the way I look at symbolism, and that's what tattooing really is expressive symbolism, right? Um, I'm able to talk to people, and I think that's really what happened. Is we were talking, really, we were just talking,
Right.
and I saw something, and I see this a lot when I'm tattooing or when I'm about to tattoo somebody, and I've been a part of so many sessions that have changed. It's to me, it's some of the most exciting sessions to be a part of because they come in and they, and it's really up to the tattoo artist. That's why, again, I tell my kids and I tell James, like, to be a tattoo healer or to be a medicine worker with tattoos, you have to be able to read people. You have to be able to interpret what they really mean, because a lot of times people don't really know what they mean. It's like, you're thinking 1,000 thoughts and you're sitting down and you're talking about these tattoos you want to get. And I'm able to sometimes read those 1,000 thoughts in the form of energy. And so for us, as we're talking about life and the ups and downs and through it all, the rays of light still shine on us, right? And just understanding God's still got our back and he's still looking out for us. It was almost like, Chito, this is a no-brainer, man. Smile now, cry later face, clouds, rays of lights piercing through, right up against the letters you have on your chest. Everything made sense. And I think that when you're able to unlock stuff like that, then it's kind of a no-brainer. And that's really what happened. It was like, let's do it. So you came in for a 20-minute session. I think you left like 6 or 7 hours later.
I know, packed with pain. I mean, the clavicle area is crazy painful. And I have a throat tattoo that you even bring the light all the way up. So
Yeah.
even the way it matches is just sick.
That was a Sasha tattoo, right?
Yeah, she did.
She's great work.
The front and the side.
Shout out to Sasha Tattoo.
She's great. I mean, and she's kind of like semi-retired too. Like she don't do too much
Yeah.
anymore. She kind of like teaches people, and I mean, that's probably from this side. When someone can get to a certain level,
Yeah.
I get what you're saying. You don't want to just tattoo for tattoo. You wanna just have great sessions, and not every session is gonna be good if you are open to everybody. And there gotta be also
Yeah.
like an energy thing, like how you get connected with that person. Because
Yeah.
when you think about it, getting a tattoo from someone, I got energy. I got part of your soul, and then if that person means well and is good and it's fun to be around, I mean,
Oof.
that's like owning
That's a
art for
whole other
someone.
topic.
That's you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's what lately, I mean, also I get to the point that everybody offers me a tattoo, and I don't take every tattoo anymore.
It really is energy, and the people that are working on you, it goes back to touch, right? When you're letting somebody put their hands on you for 5, 6, 7 hours, and that person is not in a stable place, right?
You get that.
It's going to transfer to you, and I think you're smart for having. I mean, you're a deep person, anyways, and I could always tell you read people very well, and so when someone's offering to tattoo you, it's like it's not that easy just to say yes to everybody, even if it's free. It's still, you have to be picky with who's going to be in your energetic space.
Because that's a connection. It's gonna stay with me forever. So
Forever.
like when I just started getting tattoo, going back to, it wasn't popular. Like my first tattoo was 2012, 2013, and back then in Ecuador, I remember there was only like 2 guys on TV with small tattoos. And when I started getting tattoo, it was like none of my friends have one.
Yeah.
No one in my family has one. So like getting a tattoo was a big deal back then. Like, oh shit, you got a tattoo? What the fuck? And
That's cool.
And the way I didn't went like from hiding it I went straight to my neck, straight to my hand. So I almost make a statement of like, I'm gonna go
Ask
deep.
for forgiveness, not permission.
Exactly. Like I did the big piece, like my name on my chest. Then I did my hand. Then I started doing my forearms instead of like
Oh,
most
man.
people go from the shoulder down to
Yeah.
hide it. I went straight. Like I remember I had like a forearm tattoo,
Mm.
and I went straight for my neck. I did this gorilla, and then everybody was like,
He's
what,
crazy.
What the fuck are you doing? Like you will never find a job. And I was like, I'm not looking for a job. Like
That's commendable, though. Like, I love hearing stories like that because, a lot of people just get tattoos to get them, like sleeve me down, get my piece done, right? Just so I can look tattooed, right? But you're one of those rare people that came from a culture where in a different country where they were definitely not, in fact, not only were they not acceptable, it was like you're going against the grain. You're basically offering yourself to lose a reputation, and you were gaining a reputation of really who you are, which is a warrior and a rebel. And that's my type of people, people that just don't care what people think. But how was it when you got your first tattoo? Were you a little bit nervous, like, fuck, what am I doing? What are they going to think? And how did people react?
I was definitely worried about what will happen later on. Like I was like, I get my daughter's name first in my shoulder, and that was kind of like a hidden one. And then my second and third tattoo, I went straight for my biceps, and then I started seeing like, okay, this starting. It feels like you start getting like a raise on. Like a lot of people were like, dude, don't get tattooed. Like my cousins, my closest friends were like, dude, don't get more tattoos. It looks crazy already. Like I was probably 18, 19 when all this was happening, and everybody around me was like, dude, don't do more tattoos. And I would just go like, you know what? I'm gonna go for the neck. I'm gonna go for my hands. And I remember I did my hand before I did my shoulders and stuff. And then I did my hand, I did my neck, I did my forearms, and I went from, instead of going from top down, I went from down up, and everyone was like, dude, you just look crazy. I remember when I got my first neck piece, I had probably like 4 tattoos total. And when I look in the mirror, I was like, holy shit, now I look crazy. And that was the moment I said, fuck it, I'm gonna just do my whole body.
You knew you were all in at that point, right?
I mean, because I didn't put like, because I remember there was few guys like in the UFC that have like a small piece on the neck, like kind of like lettering, but it was thin. It looked cute, but I went for a big gorilla right away, and people say, what that means? I said, it means that I don't give a fuck. It means like I'm gonna be a fighter. Like I'm telling you, and most people back then was like, dude, but you haven't even make it yet. But I'm like, that's what you see. Yeah. Inside my heart, the way I'm working, there's no way I'm not gonna be here today. Yeah. But that's going back to the vision, going back to your soul. Like back then, I knew something that most people didn't know about me. Back then I was like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna make it happen. And that helped me a lot with reading my own. Yeah. That helped me read others even better, because now it's like, back then I knew what I want, and that's today one of the biggest problems. People just don't know what they want. They kind of just go, they follow the trend. They just see some light and they follow, but you gotta see your own light at the end of the tunnel. You can follow other people's light, and it has to be true to yourself, right? And I think going back to your story, you were already fighting people on the streets, and so here you are, tattooed in Ecuador, looking crazy, street fighting, right? How did having tattoos, especially the one on your neck, how did that affect your street fights? Were people kind of like, oh shit, this guy's crazy? Well, yeah. When I got my neck tattoo, I was already fighting professional, but I was still like down for the street one. But to be honest, back then, if you have a tattoo like that, I remember like old ladies in the mall being like, what the fuck are you doing here? You don't belong here. I was like, ma'am, I live in your same neighborhood. Yeah. But like back then, like people would look me weird. Yeah. Even my grandma would be like, mijo, what are you doing? Don't do that, because there's a funny story with my grandma. Like she used to say, every time I would go to church or go do something, I will always walk to the other street if I see a tattoo guy walking towards me. And she's like, now I have to accept that. I'm like, grandma, you probably have to still walking to the other street when you see a tattoo guy coming your way. Yeah. I'm probably the only one that you can trust. And this is years ago. Yep. So it's like, don't think there's a
Yeah.
still out there some fucked up people. So don't think all tattoos are good tattoos.
And of course, I've learned, and I've heard many tattoo artists say this. I've learned this truth. Tattooed people have the biggest hearts. It's the non-tattooed people that I'm kind of suspect about sometimes,
Right.
And it's like, it's weird because it's like, it's not just a saying. It's like over and over again. I think to get tattooed, heavily tattooed, you have to think different. You have to be one of those people that are like not going to be confined in a box. You have to not care about what your parents think or society, which is why it's noble to hear this story from you about getting tattooed back then. It's just the society we're in. People get tattooed every day as culture changes. So you almost can't respect. There's levels of respect for everything, right? And if it's not the top level of respect, it doesn't mean anything bad. Like if I respect someone 100% or I respect someone 50%, it's not bad. It just is what it is. And so when I see people getting tattooed today, it's a different level of respect because it's popular now. Everybody does it. But when I hear stories about you and even things I went through, it's like, no, but you guys didn't weather the storm. Like back when it wasn't cool, back when people thought you were a madman, back when your grandma was praying harder for you, you still got tattooed.
It means more because today it's accepted by everybody. Like right now, most people go straight to the face.
Yeah.
Just because it's trendy, and I'm like, and that's just funny to me because I'm like, yeah, I see what you're doing. I mean, you just want to look apart.
Yeah.
When I did my first few tattoos, I wasn't trying to look apart. I was against everybody. Like everyone's like, oh, no good, and I was like, well, I guess I'm here.
And they weren't even super popular in the UFC like they are now. I remember I had the beautiful experience of tattooing Chemo, and he was one of the first fighters that was tatted up, with his tribal and everything.
He was fully tatted
such
up.
a great heart, right? Such a good person. But and I did most of Dennis Rodman's tattoos. A lot of people don't know that, but I did most of his tattoos. And I remember him telling me stories about when he first started getting tattoos, the NBA, owners were tripping. They were like, you can't get tattooed. You're going to have to wear long sleeves. It was so unaccepted, But again, the world and culture needs people to rebel.
And he's a staple for like, fuck you, look at me.
Yeah.
He would like dress crazy, dye his hair. Like he was really the one that went against every rule, and I can only see success on that side.
Exactly, and I think that when people, when you look at the NBA now, and there's so many awesome tattoos and people that got tattoos everywhere in the NBA, and it's like part of the uniform.
It's a thing now.
Yeah, and it's like I get to sometimes have these deep thoughts, and I think to myself like, that's pretty cool, man. Rodman really was responsible for bringing this heavily tattooed look to not just NBA, but to all sports. All sports.
To the whole, because that's a name that it's well known across every other sport. Like,
yeah.
How that came together? Like how you started tattooing him?
Gosh, we were at a convention, not a tattoo convention. I think it was like a health convention, some type of bodybuilding convention, and I was tattooing Sonny the surfer.
Sonny Garcia?
Yeah. I was fortunate to tattoo him as well. And so I was tattooing him, and Chemo walks by. And he's like, oh, what are you guys doing? And again, this was 20 years ago, so it still wasn't that popular. And Chemo, of course, he loves tattoos. So he's like, can I go next? And I'm looking at him like, fuck yeah, you can go next. You're Chemo. And he was still fighting at the time, or I think he was just kind of ending the fighting career. And then I ended up tattooing him quite a bit. And he was just such a sweetheart, such a nice guy. It taught me a lot about, fighters and what you guys go through. It's like it's a spiritual battle, Like it's interesting because that saying, as above, so below. I look at fighters as like warriors, that they're really fighting battles in the spirit world. It's just manifesting in the ring. Like, what would you say to that? Like, what are you fighting in the spiritual realms as a fighter on Earth?
I mean, I definitely feel if you do this for living, you can definitely assume or think that something is wrong with that person, because who thinks about like, I'm gonna train my ass off, I'm gonna spar, go to training camp, wrestle, grapple, do all this, to this one night, get in the cage with a guy that is extremely good too, and do that in front of the world. So we're definitely fighting some demons out there. I mean,
Yeah.
that's for sure. Like, you just don't decide I'm gonna get in the cage for no reason.
Yeah.
And maybe is the desire of being someone, is the desire of like making it in life and being successful, and fighting. Fighting is life. I mean, I love that quote, fighting is life, and I have that on my bio. I even put in one of my shirts back in the day, because when you go through fighting, like you go to training camp, you get to the fight, you make weight, you rehydrate, and you fight the next day. And talking about what we said earlier about finding discomfort in life, everything about fighting is discomfort. You gotta train hard, you gotta eat clean, you gotta eat less close to the fight, you have to make weight. If you can go through all that, I mean, life is gonna get easier. So
Like, you found comfort in discomfort.
that's the main thing. Going back to getting to an ice bath, it will never get easier. Like, every morning right before I jump in the ice, I open the lid and I look at the ice and I say, holy shit. But then you think about the benefits. You think about the shocking your body,
Yeah.
getting all the blood going, inflammation goes away. It's good for your mind health, because the anxiety that you get before, you can easily just close the lid and go and don't do it. But the moment you do that, you didn't went through.
Yeah.
Because I do it every week, and there's no one time I'm like, fuck, it was easy. It's just like, it's anxiety. It's like, fuck, I gotta do this. And then you breathe and you're just like, okay, once I'm in, it's gonna pass. But it's those 30 seconds of, okay, it's time to go.
Yeah.
And going through that, once you do it and the timer sounds and you're out, you go like, oh, everything's gonna be easier. And I have a good day of training. I feel good. My energy levels spike. All those all those like all that happens, you go like, I just went through something hard. That's why I do long distance running, because right when I'm tying my shoes, I'm like, holy shit, I'm really doing 10 miles right now. Like,
yeah.
but then while you're doing it, all these good thoughts come by, and then what I personally do, I go on recording and I start recording my thoughts, and I say something like, I'm gonna get it next time, I'm gonna make it better, or whatever positive just come. And then a few days later I go and tap listen, and I'm like, holy shit, that's just...
See, that's the medicine right there. That discomfort is keeping you in the now, the present moment, and you're actually smart. You're actually recording where your mind is in that present moment, and then you're revisiting it later when we're stuck in the past, present, future, which happens to all of us. But the cool thing about what you're saying is, I tell people this a lot, is like, those that wait to be in the mood for everything will never be successful. You have to learn to toggle into mode. And so I think that, like, when you're saying, like, I like going in the infrared sauna, and I love to crank it all the way up and stand there for 45 minutes, and it's painful, right?
It
and
is.
so I think, it's never about mood. I'm never really in the mood to do that stuff, or a cold plunge, or get a tattoo. It's just about mode. I just go from mood to mode, and it's just a decision. And I think that's what today's society is lacking. People are always waiting for the mood to do shit.
This is the way I see it. Everybody out there, it's waiting for that motivation to kick in. When you're motivated, doesn't matter what you do, you feel the best in the world. You can kick ass. You feel good. But motivation comes and go. Discipline is gonna be there all the time. You just gotta tap into. You just gotta be like, this is what I say I'm gonna do. It's gonna be done.
Yeah.
But the moment you start, I do it tomorrow, I do it later, or maybe I don't need to do it, you stay behind, because life's a marathon. And the moment you can take a break, it's okay to take a break.
Yeah.
You stop, you see your surroundings, you tap into yourself, and you're like, okay, what do I need to do better? That's fine. You can eat, get a rest, but you never stop going. The moment you keep going, you stay behind.
Yeah, you get addicted to it, right? And so what's funny, this is a funny story, is you do cold plunge to get the cold shock proteins. You do the infrared sauna to get the heat shock proteins. Well, I've coined something. I haven't heard it yet, so I'm going to claim this. There's probably such a thing as tattoo shock proteins.
I'm sure. I mean, think about it. It's the same process.
Yeah.
Like, when I'm driving to the tattoo studio, I'm not listening to music and be like, fuck yeah. You're like, fuck me.
You're like Slayer.
But the moment the piece is done or the first part is done, you go like, feels good.
I did it.
I did it. That's why when I'm getting tattoo and I'm going through a lot of pain and I really want to give up, I only think, tomorrow I'm just going to remember this, and I wouldn't even remember how painful it was. So I started seeing myself the next day either playing with the kids or just having a coffee or anything that doesn't hurt, that just feels good. And I'm like, I go to that moment and I'm like, okay, tomorrow this is not going to feel anything.
Yeah.
It's going to be sore or whatever, but you're
Not
not getting ink anymore. So every time I'm like, because it's normally what really hurts is the first hour. The first hour you're like, oh fuck.
In the
this.
last hour.
The last hour is a motherfucker. Is that center time that you're just like, woo, you're talking,
Chilling.
oh so good. But I always go, tomorrow I'm gonna have a coffee. I go to a place, I'm having a coffee, I'm hanging out with the kids, and I'm just like, it's not gonna hurt. But also, it takes a lot from you to forget about that pain and go somewhere else. I always try to go somewhere.
It's mind work right there. It's like for example, like I have a deep question for you. As a fighter, how does the pain and discomfort of tattooing help you in your fight career?
The same feeling I feel if I'm doing a hard conditioning practice, if I'm doing a sprint, or if I'm about to spar, or I'm gonna do like the really, really hard sessions, I always think the same.
I'll never forget what you said when I first tattooed you. You said, I'd rather get punched in the face than get tattooed.
1,000%. Like if I have to choose between getting into the cage and a spar or getting a tattoo, with the same result, my tattoo will be done. I mean, like, let's say technology advance and fucking Elon Musk create this thing that is just a screen print, but you still gotta do something painful in order to earn it. I get in the cage every single time and just go for it because it's fucking heavy. Like, I mean, you're pretty tired up, so you know what it feels like. So when you're tattooing a spot, you were like, I know, I get it. Like, there's times I grab your wrist and be like, okay, stop.
Give me a break. Yeah.
Okay, go again. And that for me is like, I hate to do that, but sometimes just like, oh,
well,
let me breathe.
This is the cool thing about, like, back to the ritualistic part of tattooing. It's the pain. Like, the pain is the medicine, right? We know that. It's with whatever we do. The pain is the medicine, but only if we embrace it, right? Not run from it. I always tell people when they're in pain, I'm like, don't run from it. Like the Japanese used to do, and still, like, don't run from the pain. Become one with it. If you become one with it, it's a little bit less than
it just pass by. It's like the buffalo.
Yeah.
When the storm is coming, he don't run like the other animals. He goes straight into
exactly.
it. And I apply that to a lot of my training too. Sometimes I'm like, sometimes you're training hard and it hurts. And there's one thing mentally that I feel separate me from a lot of people, that every time it's getting really hard, it's so easy to just slow down.
Yeah.
But then I feel you never push that threshold in terms of, like, if you're hitting let's say you're hitting the back and you're getting tired and you can, pitter pat it and act like you're training, I feel you don't advance in that threshold. So let's say I'm in the actual fight and then I'm going hard and then I'm like, oh, that feeling again. And then you start going like, tick, tick, tick. You would pretty much let your opponent know, oh, he's tired, so he can retreat. So when I'm working out or I'm training and I'm hitting that red light, once I feel I'm hitting it, I pull all this energy and my heart and my soul and be like, now is the time to go crazy hard. So you get used to that. And then when you need to use it, that's why I'm being able to finish so many guys, because there's a point like we're going at it and it's a battle of wheels. I go, motherfucker, I have one and it's way bigger and darker than yours. So I'm gonna just push it through and thank God for that blessing, because that's something that when I'm getting tattooed and it's getting super painful and I'm ready to go home, I'm like, just breathe. Because everything that I see is like, if you give up right now, you will give up in other parts of life.
That's exactly it. You just tied it in, because there's been times where I'm tattooing you and I know that I'm 30, 40 minutes away from being done. And going back to that last hour being the most painful, I think for me, the first hour sucks, but the last hour, only if it's a long session. If it's like a 5-6 hour session, that last hour is pure hell. It just seems like it's never going to stop. The pain is times 10. Every minute seems like an hour. But I've witnessed you casually ask, so how much longer do we have? And in my head, I'm thinking like 30 minutes. 30 minutes. So I'm watching you push through. It's like, and I can relate from getting tattooed. I reached this point of it's so much pain, so much burning sensation that I don't know how I'm going to go another 5 or 10 minutes, but I know I have to. When Cartoon was doing my back, when I had a sunburn, he's doing letters, and so he's not done. And I'm not gonna sissy out on one of my homies and one of my, mentors. And so I'm like, wow, I'm at the brink of I think all I can take in terms of pain. Like I'm convinced that this is all I can take, but I know I can't give up, and so I have to keep pushing through. And I've witnessed you do that several times. And so I think that might be it. Is so when you're in the ring, I think that's kind of how tattoos maybe help is.
It's the same switch.
Yeah.
It's the same exact switch that you have to be like, it's now. Because I see a lot of fighters, sometimes I can tell they just go on a mindset of like, I can do it better next time. Okay, this time I'm just going to let you have it. That's one thing I will never do. I die before that shit happened to me. Like,
yeah,
I've been on fights that, and even fights that I lost before, that I feel like I would probably finish myself that day if I'm the other guy. And I can just tell the other guy, just kind of like satisfies with running away when he have a few points extra, instead of like
going all the way.
I would take you out.
Yeah.
And that switch of like, even I'm gonna keep trying till the end, applies to everything in life. Getting a tattoo, going for a hard run, a hard day of training, a hard wrestling practice. Sometimes there's like a D1 guy just kicking my ass nonstop. I can easily just accept the takedowns all the time and be like, yeah, it's okay. I can push tomorrow. That's the moment I say, I'm gonna really turn the tables and be like, I'm coming after you now, and it works. And that's a pure mindset. That's something that we all have it, but most people, it's afraid to use it because they're like, what if I get more tired? What if I run out of gas? Sometimes when I see a fight start and anyone gets tired in one round, I'm like, if you train every fucking day of your life, how you get tired in 5 minutes? It's all mental.
Yeah.
So in my case, yes, I lost decisions before. There are fights that didn't win my well, but it's not because I got tired. It's not because I didn't try. And when I see other guys just pulling back and be like, yeah, come on, just TKO me, just touch me a few times, and I will. Because if you wait 10 seconds doing this, the referee will stop it.
Yeah.
I just go myself like, a guy like that will never make it. I'm not talking fighting. I'm just talking in general.
In life,
You can give up like that, and a lot of people do.
It's the times I've tattooed you, the times I've interacted with you, I saw glimpses of your discipline, whether it be eating or, hey, we have to stop. We're going to not tattoo until the fight's over. And in my head, I'm thinking, that's 3 months away. But I think, wow, that's discipline right there, right? And just the way you are, you're one of the most disciplined people I've ever met. If losing could be winning, your last fight would have been that. And so I think that, we have a lot of similar friends, and of course we always root for you when you fight. We get together, we have Chito Vera parties, with the Merrills and everybody. And but this last fight, it was probably one of the best fights that we all ever saw. And the commentary was always the same. It was like, wow, like this is a warrior, man. Like even though he didn't win the fight, I've never seen somebody with that much heart and that much like tenacity, and this guy's not fucking giving up. Like this guy has literally said to himself, if I'm not gonna win, I sure the hell am not gonna lose. And to me, that's exactly what happened. Like, describe that fight if you don't mind. Like that was a beautiful way to see somebody handle.
I mean, the whole fight camp, that was the fight of my life, because I've been dreaming to hold the belt around my waist, and I was like, I want to be a world champion. that's my ultimate dream. Like nothing can buy that, right?
Yeah.
So to me, the training camp, I trained my ass off. I was disciplined. I was looking to ways to get better. I was extremely consistent. So can tell you excuse like, oh, like I wasn't too prepared. Like I was
Yeah.
on top of my shit. I was working as hard as I can. I was eating clean. I was looking for every health protocol out there so I can be just a better performance human. And getting to the fight, I told myself in the workout, I'm gonna go all out. I'm gonna win this fight. I'm gonna kick this guy's ass, and I'm gonna hurt him, and I'm gonna take the belt from him. And get into the fight, first round, I start hot, put pressure, and then I felt like on that big knee that I took, that a lot of people thought my face was broken, which somehow, thank God, there was no fractures. It was just, and I attribute that to the way I eat, how I curse my life. I don't go out, I don't drink. So it's like I'm gonna do everything to win this fucking fight. And then mid fight, when it was like, okay, now you need to step on the gas, you need to finish this guy, because the fight, he's winning on the points. He's touching and moving, touching and moving. Now it's just like, okay. And even there was a point, coach told me like, yo, now it's time to go battle. It's time to just dig deep. And I try. I went all out, and I mean, I learned a lot from that fight, especially on myself. I was like, I know I can push like that. And I would probably say my biggest mistake that night, and I'm not afraid to say it, was like I was trying so hard to punch a hole through his head that I kind of didn't let all my game go. I should probably kick a little more. I should probably mix it up. I should probably go backwards. I mean, fuck you. You come to me.
Yeah.
I was so into like just going into through his brain with a punch.
Warrior mode.
That definitely I took my own guns away. I went like, I'm gonna beat you with one type of gun, and I try, and I say fuck it.
Yeah.
But I mean, we're 1-1 now. So
yeah.
If we keep winning, if he wins his next fight, I win my next fights, it's a fight that will definitely make to a third one, especially because this was the highest gate outside a Conor McGregor fight.
Yeah.
That's a big accomplishment because no one made it the way Conor made it. He can be whoever he is today. He can do whatever he does today. But when he made it, when he was a double champ, when he was on the top of the game, this fight in particular had the highest gate right below him.
Yeah,
So
the third fight's going to be even crazier.
It's going to be
'cause
crazier.
People are going to want to see that rematch.
And I mean, yes, I have black eyes. I have a bloody nose, but he walked out of the cage with a cast on his arm and his leg.
Yeah, and what's crazy about that is people tend to always look at the winner as the tough guy, but that fight, not just me, many people, and I read about it online and just saw, it's like you actually won by showing how tough you were. And that was, to me, what was crazy. I was like, this is a real warrior right here. This is a battle that it made fighting fun to watch. It was just like,
I just kept calm, and fuck that body shot at the last 5 seconds. I was like, I mean, that one is something that you cannot say I should have landed earlier. I mean, that just land. I mean, when you land, you land. And that one body shot, because I was already in pain. Like every time I get hit on the nose, that was painful. But then I was like, I'm gonna try till the very end. And me losing the fight, but he ending on the ground was like, okay, next time I got you.
He probably he probably understood who he fought. I think that he was probably like, wow, this guy's a tough motherfucker.
And that's why right now, again, doing the run right, I have a next fight lined up. So now all my energy is on putting this guy into another dimension and walk my way up to the title. And the first thing that those first 2 weeks after the fight, what I did was kind of like cultivate my soul, kind of like let go, just be like, it's okay.
Yeah.
You ready cry your cry, you already feel bad about yourself, you already like, I lost, I get it. Now it's time to get up, it's time to go and find a way. And the only way to find a way is keep getting better, keep working, keep 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 looking for those answers. What I can do better. I did small changes. I've been doing some different things, and now it's up to that word to come up again and just do something better, because I feel like a lot of guys have skills, right?
Yeah.
And you can use those skills all the time, but at some point you need to sharpen that blade. You need to like go back to the roots. You need to like just show a little better, and that's all my mission right now. Is just figured it out how to just show better now.
And you're a runner too. Are you doing the Run Travis Run?
Yeah, I'm
Tell me
I'm
about
gonna
that.
do it. I mean, to me, that's really cool that he's doing that. Like he's getting to run, and now he's using his platform to make other people run, which is extremely
really
amazing.
cool.
Like a lot of people hit me up like, dude, I started running because of you, and people DM me like a picture when they were overweight and now they're fit, and I mean that to me means the world, because now you're just not an image. You're like someone that is leading with example. Like
Inspiration.
I feel like when we have this type of platform, it's so easy to get caught in the moment and just act like you're a pop star and just kind of
Yeah.
like being an asshole and not show the good that you could do. And every time someone is like, dude, I'm running, thanks for just because I always post running, ice bath, like cooking.
Yeah.
That lead people to like, oh shit, that's cool. I want to do that. I want to eat clean. I want to get healthier. And I'm always looking up to who's these doctors or these scientists that they're always coming with some type of do this, eat these fruits, or do this diet. And I try it, and if it works, I show it to the world. I'm like, hey, this is what I'm doing. I'm eating a lot of meat. I'm eating liver. I'm doing the raw milk, the raw cheese, and raw farms is the best of the best.
I love raw farms.
I've been
raw
in the
farms
farm.
is the best.
I drink milk.
How was that? I saw that on Instagram.
It was
You were there.
amazing. I mean, they invite me and my family to go for a weekend. We stay at their house. They're great hosts, and I mean, they show us how the cows live. They took us to the whole process. We saw the cows when they're like eating the grass, and they show us the process as when they go and they get milk. I mean, they do things out there without damaging or overworking the animals. And I mean, they are
humane,
very humane. I mean, they are pretty much all the time on a huge grass field, just eating, kicking it. We walk through them, and I grew up in a farm, so when I was there, I was like, I'm ready to move out. I want to come here.
I know that's a
and
great
seeing
way
my
to live.
kids running in the grass, touching the cows, and it was just an amazing experience. And the people out there, people think they're like this huge corporation. There's few employees and a family running it, which is
pretty cool.
The best thing about it. And then you get to listen the fucked up part, like all these big corporations or big pharma, like I don't even know how to describe it. They're against them because they're clean, because they're good for you, and you're not poisoning.
They're keeping people out of the hospital.
They keep it, and that's why all these other big corporations are against them. They're trying to ruin them. They're trying to like bring them down, and I'm a big advocate for that. Fuck those guys.
Hey, they have a job. It's like hotel owners, right? You keep the beds full. Hospitals is the same way. How do we keep the beds full?
Which is a fuck. Like, I mean, if we go back to our ancestors and the medicine, that's the most fucked up thing to do. Like when you learn a little bit about health, and it takes 5 seconds to read on the back the label of everything you're giving to your kids, everything you're eating, and some things at front are promoted as organic, healthy, vegetables or meat, whatever.
Yeah.
Just look the back. And
it's tricky.
When you read 1,000 fucking ingredients and you cannot pronounce half of it, don't eat that shit. And in my house, we don't even buy shit with a label anymore. Like, I mean, I try to live as primal as I can.
Okay, so we want to know, what does Chito Vera eat on his cheat days?
On my cheat days, I do either a few things. There's a sourdough based pizza place called Folks. So it's pretty much sourdough with cheese and pepperoni.
That sounds good.
It's fucking amazing. I love that pizza place. And then fast food wise, in the last few years, I have probably a handful of times just eat a cheeseburger and fries, and I really try to don't eat it because when you start getting more deeper into the health
Yeah.
world and you know that those regular French fries
Yeah.
have 20 ingredients, how in the fuck a French fry this big have 10 ingredients?
Fried in seed oil.
Not just that, but the color,
Yeah.
the other shit that they add to make it look that way, to make that crisp. I'm like, I told my people, get a fucking air fryer,
Yeah.
and you will have the same exact fucking taste,
Yeah.
and
Or better.
you won't die
Yeah.
that quick. So that's the part that I really get bothered when all these food chains is just you can make it a little cleaner. I get it. Eating a cheat here and there is okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
But can you make it a little better? I mean, you are making it in a way that is gonna make you addicted to it.
Or just making your own double, triple stack cheeseburger with the raw cheese
Which you
and
can.
the grass-fed beef and, your wife's sourdough. That was good, by the way. Shout out to your wife.
My wife is a great baker. I mean,
That's-
she just make me this banana bread
Oh,
that
man.
I cannot fucking wait to go home and eat it. She make.
With some
she-
raw butter.
I
Yeah.
mean, we only use raw butter and raw cheese.
Yeah.
Like sometimes I'm in the store and they don't have what I want, I skip it. Or
Yeah.
or I would do some ghee butter or some tallow. But I mean, there's some butters out there that they're not even butter.
Mhm.
They look like it's called the fake butter. I mean,
Yeah.
how in the fuck people do this?
7 ingredients, mostly seed oils, bullshit, crap,
Shit? It is.
coloring.
That's the
It's
part that
wild.
I don't get. I'm like, how? I mean, it's people is just a little blind, by the TV and like, oh yeah, look, this is like, it's good for your cholesterol. I'm
Marketing.
like, no, it's gonna fuck you up. Like every time I'm watching the UFC, and the commercials came, and there's always this pill for whatever disease or for
Blood pressure.
HIV or for blood pressure. The pill says it's gonna save you, right? But then
What
at the end,
There's like 7.
they say the side effects. They pretty much say you're gonna think you wanna kill yourself.
They're
give
so
depression.
bad that it's almost like, were they kidding? Or was that guy being serious? Like, you might kill yourself. You might grow a third leg. You might die. You might have a heart attack. You could have a brain aneurysm.
So,
You're like, what the fuck?
but like the normal people, because we're not normal people.
No,
we
no.
we already we turned the corner and we figured it out.
What's the box? We're way outside of it.
But the normal people, oh look, that's gonna help with acne. I'm like, that's what it says. But are you listening to the fucking last 30 seconds?
Have you ever played whack-a-mole?
No, what is that?
It's that game back in the days where you would hit one, there's like 7 or 8 holes, and you hit one and it pops up in 2 other areas, and you hit those 2 and 4 more pop up. It reminds me of a game of whack-a-mole. It's
Got
like
it.
you might get rid of your acne, but you're going to grow a third leg, and you might die of a heart attack.
I mean, the one that really touches my heart is when these pills at the end says like, it might cause suicide thoughts. I'm like, can you just focus on that part?
Yeah, that's all you need.
You really want to kill yourself. You know how bad. I mean, I know there's real people that have issues and depression is a real thing. I mean,
Yeah.
I will never make fun of that. Like people like that need help,
Mhm.
but the medication that they give you to
Yeah.
cure that,
Yeah.
it would triple up.
To do it yourself, like to willingly take a pill that you're trying to cure one small element, to take on that type of thing is crazy. It's a wild world we live in, for sure, and it's good. I'm happy to know that you're on the cutting edge of biohacking and healthy living, because it goes back to something I was going to bring up earlier, and you said it. It's like you want to become somebody, like even in the tattoo world. To me, I enjoy becoming somebody in the tattoo world so that I can help others. To me, that's where I get the most joy. And for you, it's like you become a role model, not to be cool or to be famous, but it just feels so good to be able to give back in the form of knowledge, in the form of inspiration, really. Inspiration is a commodity that the world needs more than ever right now. And I commend you for becoming an inspiration to not just to people in the United States, but even your own people in Ecuador. I know that they look up to you, like you're as cool as we know you're cool, and it's just so cool to know that, to be able to give back.
I mean, to me, like I always try to, especially when I'm back home, I'm like, I'm just grateful because without that community
Yeah.
backing me up the way they do, I wouldn't be where I am.
Mhm.
I wouldn't get these big sponsors or just this big reception when I go back home. So to me, it's like the least thing that I can do is lead with good example, throw a good message out there. Like, I mean, I know we all go through hard times. Sometimes the country goes ups and down, but
Yeah.
at some point, if I get in there on a Saturday night and kick some ass and bring the flag, that's gonna create unity. That's gonna create something good for the kids. Will look up to you. That's why, like, even yes, I smoke weed and I eat a little emotions, but I know how to control that. I do it on the healthy side. So even when I do those things, I try to explain people. Don't just look at them at me
Yeah.
and think that this is the poster. I try also to be real.
Yeah.
I can be fake out there and just tell you all these lies. But also if you see me how I am, that's who I am. I mean, I'm not
Yeah.
gonna put on a mask so you can accept me.
Yeah.
And I mean, when I speak to kids or throw something for the kids, it's like, wait till you get old enough to take a
Yeah.
decision. Don't think what I do is cool because when I was at your age, I was doing this. I was thinking
Yeah.
like this. So you have to grow. You have to like get to a point that you understand a little bit of life to see what's good and bad. I grew up around great people on a great neighborhood, but I also hung out with the worst people in the
Yeah.
worst neighborhood. So I got to see early on the both worlds, and I was like, okay, if this group of friends they're really addicted to cocaine, and I see what they're doing, they're not really going well in life. Most of them come from rich families, at least back then, and if you're not taking that opportunity, that avenue, that follow your dad footsteps, or just using that platform to make it yourself, shame on you. That's your
Yeah.
fault. I mean,
Yeah.
no one forced you to do drugs. No one. But they out there. I mean, kids have to understand like that shit is out there. Evil is out there. So
Yeah.
it's up to you to like read that and be like, not today, not
Free
today.
will. Yeah. Free will.
Free will is it's important in life, but then you cannot blame it on everybody's. I know
No.
people that grew up really fucked up and they made it.
Mm-hmm.
I get inspiration for that. I wanna follow that guy. I mean, how you went from being on the hole
Yeah.
to being on the light. That's a guy that I wanna ask him questions. If someone if things are too easy given to you,
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna fuck that.
I think when people have a fucked up life, they're actually better off. They're better off becoming successful. There's some things we do with the juvenile hall here in Santa Ana. One of the things we talk to these kids about is you guys feel like you're losers. You guys feel like you're never going to make it because of your past or because of the trouble you've gotten into. And I always remind them, you guys don't understand how lucky you are. There's people in Beverly Hills, kids your age, that have both parents together, money, everything seems cool. You guys have a better chance of becoming successful than those kids because you guys have the fortunate ability
Struggle.
to use that pain and that struggle as gasoline and as medicine to propel you into someone great. Because the greatest people, when I read books and when I follow biographies, I'm not interested in people that had a good life and then they made it. That's nothing. I don't want to hear that. I want to see the people that came from the gutter and the grime and became somebody. You know?
Exactly. And sometimes there's some extraordinary cases of kids that grew up with everything and they went. That's a blessing.
Yeah.
That's great, but they
Yeah.
still making it. They still
Yeah.
figured it out how to
Keep it.
not keep it and not
Yeah.
just lose it on like everything is free. Everything's coming. And there's one point that you grew up in life and your parents are like, okay, now it's up to you to make it, and then they go like, oh wow, it's not raining forever. It doesn't rain forever. There's
No.
seasons. That's what like I love a verse from a song that says, I don't stack just for summer, I stack for all seasons, because summer
Yeah,
is bright,
yeah.
it's nice,
Mhm.
but then it's like there's also cold times, there's also rainy times, and you gotta be just ready for
Ready
all of
for it.
them. And when I see from the outside people expanding their business or making different things and becoming successful in that, I'm like, I love that.
Yeah.
And you're one of the biggest examples of that. You're a tattoo artist, right?
Yeah.
You tattoo people,
Mhm.
but that community that you have created, like you make the needles, you make the gloves, you make the ink. How you get to expand yourself like that and be this successful?
You know, that's a good question. it came from poverty. So I grew up in Santa Ana with a single mother, 5 brothers and sisters. We used to eat out of trash cans right there behind a grocery store that was on Bristol. It used to be called Lucky's. And so my childhood was kind of like a traumatic one. You know, at the time, my dad was an alcoholic, and it was like an abusive childhood type of thing. I look back now, and I'm like, what a blessing that was. But when I was a kid, it was fucked up. It was a tough way to live. I used to go to a park in a neighborhood called Delhi, and I used to draw all summer long, and that was my escape from my childhood, really. So I would draw back to back all the time. And so that became like my therapy. Even to this day, my buddy James, you know, he'll attest to this. When I'm nervous, I draw over everything. And so one day I put 2 and 2 together. I'm like, wow, this was my therapy. This was how I made it out of a childhood of pure trauma and just really not stable. So that sort of led me down a road my whole life of art as an escape, right? I could have gone to gangs or to getting into trouble, and I did get into trouble, and I did do things that were not legal as a young idiot, really, trying to find my way and try to discover who I was. But I think I sort of stumbled upon, I'm an artist. I'm a creative person. I'm not a gangster. I don't want to hurt people. Unless they mess with me, then I want to hurt them really bad. I'm just kidding.
Same.
But no, it's funny. I always tell people, don't fear the gangsters. Fear the people with the biggest hearts. Because when they love you hard. But if you cross them, they're going to hate you even harder. And
Yeah,
I can
you're
relate to
fucked.
that. Yeah,
Me too.
you know. But I think that growing up, I just had that poverty mentality, and I always thought like, I'm never going to be broke. I don't want my kids to experience this, and I want to basically make it. So art was my escape. And going back to what I said earlier, I started tattooing. This kind of goes into a fun story. I'll make it quick because it's a beautiful, long, documentary-worthy story. I was 17. I was going to a neighborhood, a really crazy gangster neighborhood in L.A. That I had some family a part of. And when I was going into this neighborhood, as a youngster, it's like you get impressed by seeing gangsters and how they roll and how they do stuff. As a young kid, it was like, oh, these guys are crazy. These guys are cool. Like, we always want to be tough, right? That's in our DNA, right? And so I was kind of this confused kid. It's like I would watch these guys and how they rolled, and I had heard about this guy named Freddie Negretti who was from that neighborhood. Now, Freddie was like, 32, 33 years ago, he was a legend in the neighborhood and throughout L.A., and he was a badass tattoo artist back then. And so I'm sitting here trying to find out who I am as a kid. Am I a troublemaker? Am I a drug dealer? Am I a wannabe gangster? What am I? But where I was at was a really serious place. And I always say, like, I was a fly on the wall to some of the craziest stuff anyone could ever see. And I realized back then, like, this really isn't like a life that I would prefer to live, because I always felt like an artist, like a nerdy artist kid. Like, I just found myself daydreaming all the time and doodling over stuff and drawing all the time and drawing gangsters, drawing clowns, what today they call Chicano style. That was like all I did in the beginning, like collages and women with their hair going into the next woman with roses and barbed wire and all that stuff, and all this poetic symbolism representing the good and bad times of that era. So during those days, I looked up to this Freddie Negretti character, and I had not met him because he was always in and out of prison. So there was a time when I was 17 years old, I'm sitting on a porch of this dude who was a gangster, and he was like, my cousin was telling him, like, hey, this kid right here, my cousin, he draws really good, man. You got to check out his artwork. So this guy goes, really? And this is destiny. This is like literally destiny of how everything in my life came to be with tattooing and even creating tattoo machines and products. And this is an inspiring story because I always tell people, if I can make it, anyone can. Trust me, like, there's nothing special about me. I'm just this kid that grew up with low self-esteem. I will be the first to admit it. And I just battled through life, battled through all kinds of stuff, battled through cancer, battled through alcoholic father, battled through being an abused, beat-up kid, crazy stuff. And overcoming all these things is what leads to success. But back then, I'm like, tattooing, So my cousin tells this guy, this big old gangster, he says, go get your book and show him your artwork. So I went and ran to my little Honda Civic, pulled out my blue folder, and I'm showing this dude my artwork, and he's like, oh man, this is good shit, right? And I was a decent drawer back then, so he was, I'll let you tattoo me, whatever you want. And so that night home, I rode home with a cousin of mine, and he goes, hey man, I'm going to tell you this, man, this is prophetic. He goes, if you could learn how to tattoo like Freddie, and you don't get in trouble, and you don't do drugs, and you stay out of prison, the whole world is going to be yours. That's what he told me. And that was a big seed that was planted. And I'm 17 years old at the time. And so I thought to myself, well, where the hell am I going to get a tattoo machine? Like, there was no internet back then, really. Right. There was no catalog you can order. Well, actually, there was a catalog, Huck Spalding, but they wouldn't sell to just anybody, especially a kid from the streets, right? So I'm like, okay, I want to try this. But how the heck am I going to learn how to tattoo? There's no schools. There's no YouTube videos. You kids nowadays have it freaking made. Like, this shit wasn't around when I was younger. So I had to sit there and go, okay, the only way I can get a tattoo machine is if I make one. So I got the old prison recipe. And so I remember with my brother, I went to the hobby store with my brother Julio. My brother Julio, we went to, I forget what, maybe it was Hobby Shack or something back then. And I bought all the stuff. I'm like, I remember reading the recipe. I think I wrote it down on a little piece of paper from this guy, this gangster dude. And he ended up getting shot and died like a week later. Wow. And I remember I was like, oh man, I didn't even get a chance to show him that I made my first machine. And so I'm looking at this recipe. I'm like, okay, rod, lead pencil, Walkman, preferably the Sportsman Walkman. Remember the yellow one?
Yeah.
So I'm getting all this stuff, right? Go back to the house. I get the Walkman. I start bashing it against the ground, right? And
so you can take the motor.
Kind of like the Aztec warrior when he pulls out the heart after you. I remember finding the motor and pulling it out of the machine going, oh, this is it, man. This is it. I got the heart of this thing. So I made my first homemade tattoo machine. It was homemade, but it was awesome. That shit worked. You would use an E-string guitar. You would sharpen it. I remember for the first 2 years, all I used was a homemade machine. So I'd have a big callus on my finger from sharpening the E-string guitar. I got so good, I would rotate it with my other fingers, and I would sharpen it. I would look at it under an eye loop, and my customer would be on the couch waiting. I would put a little alcohol in it. Now I don't suggest you learn this way, but this is just my story. And I'd say, okay, I'm ready. And I would tattoo. You know how everybody's getting these small tattoos and they're so cool and trendy? That's really what I was doing back then. Or I would do letters, and I remember doing all these neighborhoods on people. And I remember thinking like, damn, like, okay, I'm going to get you in and we'll outline everything in one day. And then every session I'll fill in a letter because it took so long with a single needle.
Right, right.
But that was written in the stars, really. When I look back now, that was 32 years ago. This August will be 32 years. And I think I made a tattoo machine 32 years ago. I was inspired by a man named Freddie Negretti, who I ended up meeting a few years later when he was in the neighborhood at a party, and then he vanished again. And so I became a tattoo artist from the streets. I became a tattoo artist that had a homemade machine. That was all I knew. I was driving to San Diego in the morning, and I would end up in LA at night. I was taking anyone and everyone that would want a tattoo. Now, I went to 12th grade. Well, this is kind of a crazy story, but in the 11th grade, I was doing fake tattoos on people. I don't know why. Lunchtime would come. I would draw butterflies on girls and do like old English letters on dudes that thought they were gangsters. And so I showed up in the 12th grade, and I'm like, hey, motherfuckers, now I do real ones. And they were like, really? And you imagine, I was so busy back then. I was tattooing after school, before school. I was playing hooky. I got suspended, actually. Somebody ratted us out, but I remember I would tattoo in the bathroom in the back stall, the big stall.
That's crazy.
And I was tattooing my friend's mother's name on him. And all of a sudden, the school narc. You remember the school narcs?
Yeah.
He comes in. Somebody ratted me out. He says, hey, Franco, I know you're in there. I'm like, nope. Right? And then I told my friend to jump on the toilet so he sees only 2 feet. I'm pretending like I'm taking a shit, right? And all of a sudden, this fucker just kicks the door wide open. and I'm holding the tattoo machine, and my friend's like right there. This would have been the best picture ever. I would pay $10,000 for it. We were caught. The machine's in my hand. His arm's bleeding. I think his mom's name. I had to finish it later on. I got kicked out. That particular school has a rule where you can't tattoo. I remember he said, I don't even know what we're kicking you out for.
You set the rules then.
There's a rule, yeah. So I try set some trends, I guess, right? But that was like my initial start. From there, it went to really like being fascinated with Freddie's work. He was such a detailed, realistic artist back then. Freddie Negretti is actually accredited to being, him and Jack Rudy were the first, we're talking late 60s, early 70s. They were one of the first to bring fine line, realistic black and gray tattooing into the fucking world. Like,
that's crazy.
Into the world. This wasn't going on anywhere. Ed Hardy was so fascinated. You know, we all know who Ed Hardy is. He was so fascinated that he moved from San Francisco to East L.A. To save the shop at the time, Good Time Charlie's Tattoo Land. And he was so inspired by this fine line black and gray that when you look at Ed Hardy's work, it was strongly influenced by Freddie and by Jack. And so that's who Freddie is. He's this like icon of fine line black and gray. And of course, we know it in the tattoo world, but I love to tell the story to a broader audience because Freddie went on to fulfill some destiny for me as someone that's looked up to him. Our path started, in the same area. His life took a crazy detour. He went in and out of prison. He found himself in all kinds of crazy positions in life. He rest in peace to Boo Boo, his son, and Frosty. He lost two of his sons. He had a crazy life, right? And then he became sober and started tattooing at the iconic Shamrock Tattoo in Hollywood, which is part of this story. And so throughout my career as an artist, I started tattooing back when it wasn't popular, but I was always doing black and gray realism. I remember I started doing portraits 27, 28 years ago, and people were like, oh my God. And there wasn't
even portraits back then.
There wasn't a lot of portraits. I could tell you, like back in the days, it was me, this guy named Tim Hendricks, Jose Lopez, Jack Rudy. Handful of people were doing black and gray tattoos, black and gray portraits in particular, but I took a hard fascination with portraits. So I would show up to the conventions and I would win awards for doing black and gray portraits. And I was able to earn a name for myself. Can I take a piss break real quick?
Yeah.
This is a great tie-in of the end of the story, but I gotta go pee so bad.
Go for it. Well, everything started with me asking you how you went from being a tattoo artist.
Yeah.
And you have when I met you the first time, you took me through the whole shop.
Yeah,
and it's like 20 doors. You make machines, you make the ink, and what it feels so cool to me is like I see all the other tattoo artists that I know.
Yeah.
They all use your brand. So
that's cool.
How you create something that cool?
So going to the tattoo conventions back in those days, I was showing up with crazy pieces, and it's interesting because there's a lot of great tattoo artists nowadays. In fact, it's not impressive to see a portrait anymore, right?
There's some crazy realisms out there.
There's some crazy ones, but it's like you see something so much, it's like it's impressive. It's like, okay, that's cool. It's like a pretty girl in Miami. It's like, okay, you're pretty, but there's millions of others, right? It's not like it's the only one. But back in those days, I got to partake in this era where there was not that many realistic tattooers in the whole world. And so Southern California was known to be one of the breeding grounds for some of the baddest motherfuckers in the world, like Cartoon, Jose Lopez, Tim Hendricks, Chuy Quintanar. James, I don't want to forget, so...
you got Chente Rios, you got Carlos Torres.
Yeah. Chente Rios, Carlos Torres. I can go on, and I'm not going to forget people's names, but the picture I'm trying to paint is back then there was not a lot. We're talking a handful. And so I was winning these awards for doing black and gray, and I was making a name for myself as this young tattoo artist. And I remember like when Jack Rudy like knew my name, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe he knows my name now. And then I had seen Freddie, again, because again, he was always in and out, but he was always the one I was looking up to. Like, I can't wait to see Freddie again. When is he going to be out of prison? and I can't wait to show him my work and see what he thinks, you know. And because he's ultimately the reason why I started tattooing. Back then, if I didn't see Freddie Negretti's work, I would have never had, like we said earlier, we need goals to achieve.
Right.
If tattooing was shitty back then, I probably wouldn't have been interested. But when I saw a mermaid he did on a dude named Chito Fly, I was like, that's what I want to do. How the fuck did you do a tattoo that good with grayscale and it looks like a portrait, like a real mermaid? Because that wasn't around back then. So I became obsessed with making things look real with fine line black and gray. That was my obsession. I eat, breathed, and shitted it every single day. I was driving to and from. I got a chance to work at my first studio in the hood, you know, in Huntington Park. And I would drive every day to Huntington Park to work. And it was a crazy, the studio was called Body and Mind. It's kind of popular within our tattoo community because it was right in the hood. It would be like drive-bys and crazy stuff happening every day. And I was this art nerd going, fuck, this is dangerous, but this is my first tattoo shop. Oh, I can't believe I made it. I'm a
That's
professional
crazy.
now. Like, I remember I went in and my boy Happy, shout out to Happy. He's one of my best friends in the industry. He goes, you can't use a homemade machine here. And I was like, really? Like, but I feel so good with it.
You become a pro with it.
Yeah, and this goes again and ties into a greater story where there's coils and there's rotaries, there's PCs, and then there's Mac, right? And so, cool thing about Steve Jobs and coming out with a Mac, it was this brand new computer. It was so different than the PC, and it was like for creative people, and everyone talked shit, and they were like, "What is that?" But he knew that this is going to change the world because it's simple and it's for creative people. And he looked at every human ultimately as creatives, right? Because we are. And so he look where it's at now. So back then I'm like, I don't like coil machines. You guys are forcing me to, use a 9-ounce machine that's hurting my wrist. I'm like, I've been tattooing for 3 years, 3 years with a homemade machine. It's like 1 ounce. So that kind of triggered, man, these machines, I don't like them. Like, what is it? Like, so I started using cosmetic machines because they were also rotary machines. So I'm tattooing, I'm in a shop, I'm doing these black and gray tattoos, I'm having a good time. And at that time, it was like, if you earned a name for yourself, like everyone kind of knew who you were. This was before MySpace. This is before Instagram. This was even before MySpace and Facebook. You got your work known by getting into the magazines. So I'd get into the magazines, and I remember the feeling of getting into a magazine, and I was like, oh, I finally made it. And it goes back to, like, I think I always wanted to do something great. I just didn't know what it was or how, but it goes back to a question I was going to ask you about earlier, which is I just knew something was there for me. I knew something great was going to happen. My mother used to tell me all the time, you're going to make it with art. You're going to do great with art. And I remember going, oh, okay. God rest her soul. She was an awesome mother. She was always motivating me to do better. And she was one of the few people that said, everybody else was like, art, it's a waste of time. You're never going to make it. Like,
Right.
art, starving artist. But my mom was like, no, keep going. You're going to make it. You're going to make it one day.
She saw something. She saw the picture before you saw it.
Yeah, she was a visionary too on Earth. She was a really special woman. And so she kind of filled my head with, I'm going to make it in the art world, right? That was my programming for my mother, and it worked. And so as I started tattooing, as I started getting more immersed, I was tired of the machines that existed. They were heavy. They were not the best. So in about 2006, way before rotary machines were popular, because I would say 90 to 95% of the tattoo industry in those days used coil machines. So much that when they would see me at the conventions, they'd be like making fun of me in a fun way because we were all homies, right? What the fuck is that? That's not a tattoo machine. I could barely hear that thing. Like going back to what we talked about earlier is paying your dues, right? Getting tattoos in a time where nobody accepted it. That's cool. That's gangster. Nowadays, it's whatever. It's not a big deal. So back in those days, everybody talked shit. Like, what is he making? I started making these machines in about 06, 07. I got my first CNC machine at the end of 07. 08, I started making them and sort of selling them to my friends and different people. And I knew they worked better than anything out. And my friends that would try them, they would flip out. It was so crazy, Cheeto. It would be like I made a machine that the needle moved up and down perfectly. It didn't shake. It was consistent. And so when people used it, it was like this. I got my tattoo done. I would have people telling me, man, I got to change my hourly rate. I got this tattoo done so freaking fast. Like, it's crazy, right? And that was kind of the cutting edge of seeing people's artwork become like fine art. Because before that, not every coil machine was good. There was a lot of bad ones out there. And if you had a good coil machine, chances are after a few tattoos, the capacitor would blow, or different coil machines are different because there's so many things that can go wrong. Even like having dirty electricity in your building could make it fluctuate. So you're over here as an artist tattooing with a machine that's going in and out. Makes it hard for you to do your job.
Yeah.
I came in with a machine that it did the job.
Just nail it.
Perfect.
Like, I mean, I've been getting tattooed by a few different guys, and when I see the gloves, the machine, the ink, I'm like, that I see it from the outside, and I'm just like, that's big. Because if it's only you using your own stuff, it's like, yeah, it's good for you. But when you see everybody else using it, you're like, that's good.
You want to know the key? The key is insecurity, right? Goes back to this powerful thing called insecurity, right? If you use it as medicine, you can take over the world. And it's like what my cousin Edwin said. It's like, I made a machine, and I was like, I don't want people to shit talk on me. Because people are talking shit, I'm going to make it even better. How dare them say shit like that? Like, this isn't a tattoo machine. I'll show them. So I fought through this thing, right? This Rotary movement, right? And I was able to play a big part of, now it's 90 to 95% of the world uses rotaries. And maybe a small fraction use coils. And so as I was making these machines, I was like, I have to make my peers happy. I got to do it for them, for me. So I made the machines to where I knew they were good. I knew they were going to work. And I never wanted to be a businessman. I never thought to be a businessman. I never thought I was going to start a company. I just wanted to make a machine that worked good for me and my friends. And if I sell a couple on the side to pay for this whole thing, I'm a happy camper. But this is where the story gets crazy. It goes into a story of perseverance, a tattoo I have right across my front. It's a crazy thing to be on the verge of something great. And in every biography I've ever read, you get straight shit on by life. You're doing something good, and life comes and punches you in the fucking face. For me, it was 2 times. It was a left hook and a right hook. So I'm making these machines. Everyone's starting to want more and more. Do you remember that movie Blow?
Yeah.
Do you remember when he comes back in the RV and he goes, I need more. I need more. A lot more. That's what people were saying. They're like, hey, I had friends that were buying a couple, 5 or 6 at a time. They were like, hey, I need 10. 10? Shit, I'm only making like 10 or 15 a month. No, I need more. I got my first distributor, and she ordered 100 machines. And that was when I felt like I made it. Like, 100 machines.
That's
like,
a lot.
What? So I would call the machinist and be like, I need 100 machines. And he'd be like, well, you got to give me the money for it. And at that time, I had kids, and I was like, money was up and down. So I was like, I'm going to find a way. So I'd work harder, pay him, get them done. As that business was growing in 08, 09, it's just started to kind of really start to go crazy. It was like I was getting other distributors that wanted 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. People that were making fun of me were now going, you're on to something, dude. Everyone in my shop now wants one. So I'm converting these people that were like dead against rotary machines. They're not talking shit anymore. They're like,
they want more.
This is fucking crazy. Because it really was that crazy. It's like, so 2010 happens on Christmas. I have a fire. Burns most of my shop down. Burns all the blueprints. The CNC machine was damaged. The whole studio was damaged. I remember getting a call on Christmas and thinking it was a joke. They're like, hey, this is a fire department. Your shop's on fire. And I'm like, yeah, right. Who the fuck is this, right? Dumbass. It's Christmas time. That's a stupid joke. It's not even April 1st. What are you talking about? And then I think it was the tone of his voice. I'm like, he's not kidding. And so I drove down there. Sure enough, the ambulance, or not the ambulance, but the fire department's there. They're just putting the fire out. And I'm like, this fucking sucks. They wouldn't even let me in. I had to wait till the next day. I had to go with the owners of the business plaza. And I'm talking like there was a couch, there was a TV, and what was left was just springs and like the frame. You know, it was gone. So like everything was gone. It's trippy. I have a interesting Bible story. I bought this old-fashioned Bible from the 1800s. Didn't get touched. It's weird. Everything got burnt around it except for the Bible.
Wow.
I still have it. I'll show you the next time you come.
That's
It's
crazy.
wild, right? So it burnt my shop down. It sucked. I was outside smoking a cigarette. I didn't smoke that often. It was like stressful times. The neighbor tells me, "Hey, you know, I go to this church and the girl's like a prophet," and I'm like, "Yeah, right." So she's like, "I don't know how to tell you this, but she told me to give you a message that you're working on something that you can't quit. You're trying to quit something. You keep going. You're going to get blessed tenfold, right?" Oh, I didn't tell you. Before that, I decided, I'm done making machines. There's no way I'm going to be able to pay for all this. So I'm not really making that much money with machines. I'm giving most of them away. I'm like, I'm done. This isn't going to work out. I don't know how I'm going to get out of this fucking hole. Fast forward, I ended up, the landlord kicked me out. And so I remember going, let me come down there and talk to you in person. So I came down. He's like, yeah, you have no insurance because my insurance lapsed. He's like, you're out of here. And I said, well, how about this? I'll make you a deal. If you let me stay, I'll pay for everything to get fixed out of my own pocket. If you kick me out, I don't have any money to pay you, and I'm not going to. So he goes, you got a deal. I didn't know what the hell I was taking on. 3 years later, probably $300,000 later, I rebuilt the studio. I was tattooing day and night, Chito, day and night. My friend next door to me let me use his place. It ended up being Snoop Dogg's place at later on down the line, his little hidden Orange County studio, him and Warren G. I got through that storm. Then I had an anxiety attack one day. I thought I was dying, probably from all the stress from the fire and everything. I go and I get checked out. They're like, no, you're fine, but you got something in your lung. I'm like it's the size of a grape. I'm like, oh, shit, this is not good. It ended up being lung cancer.
True.
So I don't share the story very often, but it was probably one of the shittiest times I've ever been through because I never had surgery in my life. I was always afraid of surgery. So imagine the first surgery, the guy's like, I'm going to take out your whole upper right lobe. I'm like, fuck. And I had a grandfather that died from lung surgery. He had lung cancer. And he
That's
died from the
crazy.
surgery. Of course, this was like in the 50s or 60s. So I'm like, damn, this sucks, man. I just got hit with a left hook, the fire, right hook, this lung cancer thing. I'm like, this sucks. So I was good with giving up on the machines, everything. Long story short, I listened to the girl, my neighbor. I changed my mind. I decided to keep going with Bishop Rotary. I got past the lung surgery. I remember when I got the lung surgery, I couldn't walk 3 or 4 feet without being out of breath. Like that, getting back on my feet from that lung surgery was terrible.
I mean, you have lung and a half. You don't have the two. in there.
Yeah, it was like wild. I was like, I'm so out of breath. I feel like I'm like in the mountains. So I'm making machines, going and resting. Distributors don't give a shit. They're like, where's my machines? Where's my machines? So I'm like, oh my God, I think this is going to work. Oh, thank God I didn't quit. So I ended up being able to fix the whole studio and keeping my word with the manager of the building, not from just tattooing, but then the machines started coming around. People were buying more and more. And so the Bishop Rotary machine became like my savior. Like, oh my God, thank you so much. Thank you, God. And so the machine business started picking up like crazy. I didn't give up. I didn't quit. I was going to. I wasn't even sad. I was like, I quit, Chito, logically. I'm like, there's just no way I could afford this. I'm good, fine. It was a fun run. I won't have a tattoo studio and I won't do machines. I'll go back to working somewhere and that'll be it.
Figured it out.
But I went through it. I trucked through it. It was painful. Like you said, running, fighting when you don't want to fight anymore. That's kind of what I was doing. I'm like, I would show up every day going, fuck, when is this going to end? When am I going to be done tattooing morning, noon, and night? Sleeping on couches. This is also after 2008. I lost my properties. I lost my car. Man, it was like the shittiest time of my life, but what a blessing it was. I was sleeping on my cousin's couch, right? I remember they repossessed my car. I ran out there and tried to jump into it to save it. They took it. I have no car. I'm sleeping on my cousin's couch, the same one that said if you don't do drugs and you become a really good tattoo artist, your life will change. But people don't understand, to be successful, you have to be, you have to get kicked in the ass, right?
You have to.
So that was like 08, 09, 2010, 2011. It was like 4 years of pure hell. I just didn't give up. That was the thing. And I tell people, hey, all you have to do in life is just not give up.
Keep going.
That's it. Just don't give up, and fucking when the going gets tough, keep on fucking going, because when the going gets tough, that means there's a blessing right around the corner. Like, I learned that now, like, and I tell people that if your life is fucked up, you should actually consider yourself lucky and worthy, because that means there's a really cool blessing right on the other side. The spirits just want to test you to see if you're going to make it through that. And if you make it through that, they have an obligation. It's an actual universal rule. They have to bless you. And I started seeing that happen. And I started going from 50 machines a month to 100 to 150 to 200 to 300. And then there wasn't, what year was that, James, at the convention?
2013, 2014.
So I'm sitting at a convention in Palm Springs with James tattooing his back. And I'm looking around and I'm going, hey, James, you see those needles? You see those gloves? You see those ink? And at the time I was only making machines. I said, we're going to make everything. And you kind of got to be delusional to be successful.
You have to.
I had no idea how the fuck I was going to make needles, ink, RCA cords, gloves. We have hundreds of products. I had no idea. I just knew that that's what I was going to freaking do. And I share that with people, and the people are listening. It's like with fighting, it's like you said you knew what your goal was. You knew you're going to be a professional fighter. And I just knew that we were going to have a successful big company. And I would tell James, we're going to be the biggest tattoo company in the whole world. And at the time, we weren't, but now we are. We are the biggest tattoo company in the world. We're the biggest brand in the tattoo world. There's not even a second. And I say this humbly because this is not just me, it's my team. It's everybody, right? It's God first and foremost, not to sound corny, but I can see how he had his hand in my life in so many ways. Meeting Freddie, following my path as a tattoo artist, going through all the stuff I went through. And now here we are, we have the biggest tattoo brand in the world, and it wasn't easy. It came from suffering. It came from a lot of perseverance. And I tell people, like, people get our logo tattooed hundreds, if not thousands of times. We get pictures sent over. People have the Bishop logo on their face and on their head and on their hands. And I always make sure to message those people with the long story. Thank you for getting that. I want you to know what that symbol really means. That symbol has nothing to do with tattooing. That symbol, the Bishop logo, has nothing to do with tattooing. It has everything to do with perseverance, overcoming the struggle. And if I could do it, me, Franco, Bishop, then you could for sure do it, because there's really nothing special about me. All I did was not give up.
Keep going. And
fast forwarding to now, Freddie living his crazy life, me going through all these struggles and pain and heartache, right? And so, I get a call 4 months ago, and I remember telling Freddie a year or two ago, man, let's open up a shop together, man. Like, you're part of my life. Like, we're a part of each other's lives. I mean, since then we became such good friends. I call him my uncle. He calls me my nephew, because the gap isn't far enough to be calling him dad and me son, right? So you're my older uncle. And so we become really close over the years. And I would say, let me open up a shop for you, man. Like, let me pay you back for all the great things you've done for not just me, but the industry, and the style you brought to the world, right, Chito, that's now famous all over the world. So many artists don't even know where this came from. And one of my mentors and best friends started it with him and Jack. And so he calls me up. He says, hey, man, I need you. We have an opportunity to save this shop before it fails. And I want you to be my partner. And we're talking about an iconic studio, one of the most iconic studios in the world. What makes it iconic is the people that have gotten tattooed there, the people that have tattooed there, and Freddie's one of them. He's been tattooing there for 15 years or more. So fast forward to today, we have a grand opening coming up. It'll probably have already came and passed before this is dropped, but I just want to give a special shout out to Freddie Negretti for being a lifelong mentor to not just me, but the world. The amount of pain and suffering that Freddie's been through, Chito, is like, he's known to be an inspiration. He'll help you with just his little words of wisdom. He's OG. He's an OG guy, an OG tattoo artist. He's just a great human being to be around, and I'm so lucky to call him my business partner at the Hollywood Vatican off of Sunset. It's an iconic city, iconic street, iconic studio with iconic people. And these are the moments where I sit back and I feel like, fuck, is this what it feels like to make it? Because it's like when I look back and I see my 17-year-old self, I'm 48 now, and I look back and I see Freddie Negretti, this idol. Oh my God, I want to be like him. I got to do these things that he did. I got to listen to my cousin and keep my nose as clean as I could throughout my life and just focus on business and becoming a better person, an artist and businessman, and getting my ass kicked along the way. There's many other battles I've been through. And so to land as this business partner, Freddie Negretti, iconic studio, it's crazy, man.
That's epic, man. Congratulations.
Thank you, brother.
I'll be there.
Yeah, I can't wait, man. It's a lot of pressure.
But it's a good pressure to have. I mean, that's how you make something great. And I'm so happy you share that story, how you started Bishop, because as a fan of tattoo, it's been a pleasure to be tattooed with you. And it's going to continue to, because we got to finish this piece at some point.
We got the whole torso.
But I'm happy you make it today, man. Thank you so much.
Man. Great conversation. I think we might have to do a round two. There's so much.
I mean, we always, every time we get a tattoo, we don't start like 3 hours after.
Yeah.
You can just hit off a conversation.
We go down rabbit holes, man. We're blessed and fortunate. And I just want to say, thank you to every, customer of ours that's bought in a machine or a product from us. We really appreciate you guys and all my customers that I've tattooed over the years. It's the people, like you said earlier, with your people back home and your fans. It's those people that really make us who 100%, we are.
100%. Thanks to that people.
Yeah. Thank you. Great conversation, Chito.
Thank you, man. I'm happy you came.
Yeah. Heck yeah.
Franco Vescovi, ladies and gentlemen.